Well, anyway, Peter, last night's game, uh, I'm working with U13, so I've left the pros and the national team, and I'm out down here watching these kids. Tom coaches in the league, and I, I got a question, Tom. Is the game dangerous? The girls' minor hockey game last night, there was a lot of penalties, hits from behind. There's scrums in front of the net with some penalties being taken. And boy, I came away from that more concerned about safety and respect.
Well, they don't teach defensive technique individual very good. Like we've got the least penalties in the league,
Yeah.
but we work on, the stick on the puck and angling and defensive skating and all this. Because when you saw our game against the Red the other day, like Whitworth got hit from behind into the boards.
Yeah.
Not even a 2 minute on that should have been a game ejection.
Yeah.
And we were getting tackled and tripped all over the place.
Yeah. That's
So,
a good, the teaching of how to check. It's not there. So they're hitting, cross checking from behind, knocking people down. There was a 4 minute hit to the head penalty, and there
well,
was
first
two.
of all, they all have to keep their stick on the ice, right?
Yeah.
Your stick is never off the ice when you're checking.
Yeah.
And if that they start there, that eliminates a lot of crap.
Yeah. What about in front of the net? I've noticed at U13 they're cross checking each other and staring each other down. They're 11 and 12-year-old girls, and I'm thinking, get the heck out of there. To me, that's ugly. I don't see that happening much in the NHL game.
No, but the same thing. You keep your stick on the ice and have your stick on the box out. And the only time it needs to be physical is when the puck's on the way, right?
Yeah.
Don't have to be wrestling someone in front. And anyway, they shouldn't be standing in front of the net anyway. They should be there, as an outlet for the pass after the forecheck.
Tom, what you're talking about, right,
Yeah.
is harder to do, right, than just essentially bullying someone away from the front of the net,
Oh yeah, it's way harder to do. Like we
right?
had one of our D was doing that stuff at the early, and I had to bench her. She took 10 minutes in 2 games penalties at our starting tournament.
Yeah, I think that's some of the reason why they do it is because it's just easier to do the physical piece of it, unfortunately, and not learn it the right way, the correct way that it's more productive.
Yeah, I mean it's just doesn't make any sense most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you grew up in an era, I think Peter and I both did too, where we're taught how to teach those tactical skills. Angling, stick on puck, going through the hands and the hips. Uh, but years ago, Peter, in Canada, and I don't know if it ever happened in the States, back in the 1990s, there was a serious rise in the insurance rates because of hitting from behind. And they put stop crest and respect crest on the back of minor hockey jerseys. Did that happen down south, Peter?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it affected any kind of insurance rates, but they put actually a miniature stop sign right up on the back between the up above between the shoulder blades.
Yeah.
Most of the jerseys, and then the other thing they did was, which it's since disappeared. They put that orange line that was maybe about 3 feet wide away from the boards, but all the way around the boards.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to give you a visual cue that when you saw an opponent in that orange area, to be careful and to not hit from behind, that you're approaching a dangerous place. Now, I don't see that anymore. That kind of went away. I'm not sure why. Maybe people just felt it wasn't doing anything, or I'm not sure why it went away, but they did do those two things like that you're talking about in order to address that very situation.
Peter, we had Dr. Joan Vickers who initiated that research here in Calgary. Uh, it was visual awareness of the danger zone. and they did a lot of research on it, and apparently it was the Eastern United States that initially bought into the concept. But you say there's none of the rinks you see now have that 3-foot reminder barrier around the perimeter of the rink?
Not that I've seen, but again, they're, New England's still a pretty big area. It could still be in some rinks. I just haven't seen it in any of the rinks that I've been at.
Well, Tom, I must be getting old, but I'm just as worried as ever about hitting from behind in the girls' game as I was in the boys' game back in the day.
Oh, it's a dangerous thing. The boards are unforgiving. I mean, Kat got her knee torn up hitting the boards. It wasn't a hit from behind, but you hit those boards, boy, they're unforgiving. Got to be, careful around there.
Well, I
But
typed
there's no reason they shouldn't be teaching proper angling techniques.
I sent out
I think it all depends on the coach. A lot of people do. It's not like a club where you got it in your club and they learn everything at certain levels because they got a curriculum. Everybody kind of does their own thing.
Well, I think the other part of it too, like I see it around here, is again, that really touches a little bit on culture too, in some ways, that, if you accept that behavior as a coach, then your team's going to keep doing it. Right. I mean, if you have your own little, maybe after a game, your own punitive, type of thing, like maybe you're not in the lineup for the next game, or maybe you don't play the first period if it's something that's habitual for you, because we want you to learn, sending a message to the rest of the team that, yeah, we don't want to do this because I want to play 3 periods. I don't want to play 2 or none.
Yeah. Well, that's always the only weapon a coach has, is ice time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how much that's used. I know when I coached university, I had, if you got a misconduct penalty, because usually you get a misconduct penalty right from mouthing off to the official.
Yeah.
And it was hard to do, but if you got a misconduct penalty, I just gassed you for the rest of the game. You sat there for 10 minutes, and then when you were done, you just sat on the bench and you didn't play again. And it was hard to do because, as you know, of course, it's always seems a way that sometimes it's your players that can score goals, or the guys that are doing some of that stuff, just kind of getting over the edge. But I'll tell you what, it changed it in short order for those individuals and the whole rest of the team.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's always, you got to keep your thumb on top of things or they go south on you.
Yeah, it's like it's like putting a cat in a room with a mouse. Tell the cat don't eat the mouse, and you shut the door, and you come back and you're surprised that the cat had eaten the mouse. Right? Like you said, you got to be on it. You got to pay attention, know what's going on.
Yeah. No. Yeah, the board stuff is, and people also have to teach them to get their hands up if they feel something, to protect themselves so they don't. And another thing I tell the girls, I said, like in football, you hit with your hand up like that. You never want to hit with your head straight. You never want to, if you are going the board, you don't want to hit the very top of your head. Only 5 miles an hour crush your spine.
Yes.
So get your head up, if you can possibly do it. And the other thing that I found you have to teach is these kids think the helmet protects them from concussions, and it does nothing for concussions.
Right.
Cracked skulls and, because it's your brain flipping around. So my grandson was getting a minor concussion plan. The kids are hitting each other with a stick, fooling around and stuff. And I noticed someone's coming for him. And, it's obviously going to be a big hit. He never, your top hand up like this, you pick off all that stuff and your head doesn't get hit.
Right.
And they think the helmet's going to protect them. So you have to you know, you gotta, when things are flying all over, you go like this and your stick picks off most things. And that's something that kids need to be taught too, because most of the time they didn't protect themselves.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And it seems like you get, it's easy to get caught up in all the other aspects because you want to work on your skills, you want to work on shooting, passing, scoring, you want to work on your systems, those kinds of things. And you forget those basics that you always, I feel like you have to keep going back to regardless of what they are. And safety actually is one of those basics that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that, you know, and I think without face masks and that, the sticks are very careless too.
Yeah, one is interesting too. You bring that up with that whole thing now with the major junior players being able to come to the NCAA. Now they're talking about some sort of a waiver or just a rule for half shields in the NCAA now.
Yeah, well, all those kids, you know, up to midget, they all wore cages anyway, so it's not that, you know, it's not that big of a deal. You know, they were in the half visors, but someone that wore a cage can get back to a cage with no problem whatsoever.
Right. And you could argue too, I suppose, that the cages actually give you a certain feeling of invincibility.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to get a stick up when someone's in a cage. So, I mean, it can work the other way a little bit too.
Yeah, like I'm so old that until midget, we didn't have to wear helmets. And then in the next year is called juvenile. They don't have it anymore because now U18 is used to be U17, and then U19 was juvenile. But anyways, in juvenile, helmets were mandated, but the refs in Alberta refused to wear the helmets, so they wouldn't call it. So they weren't really. Some guys wore helmets, some didn't. And then I think Hockey Alberta said, okay, if you don't wear a helmet, you won't be reffing. And of course, everybody wore a helmet. But then when I played after college, when I went to that US league, I didn't wear a helmet there. How smart I am.
Well, it's again, it's it's what it was, right?
Yeah.
We all used to put sugar on our cereals every morning for breakfast when we were kids.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
You don't
I just had
anymore, Peter?
What's that?
Do you have sugar? Have you reduced your sugar intake?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Had my physical, everything was in the green, so that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's changed. They even changed the name of sugars. You know, the companies used to have things like Sugar Smacks and names like that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. And now they're just called Smacks.
Well, the ad for sugar pops was, oh, the pops are sweeter and the taste is new. They're shot with sugar through and
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
So
still like them.